Final Stop Brazil, Book 2, Life After Hell, Chapter 40. Hopeless changing of another year. Brutal police. 24th of December 2008, the day before Christmas, or Christmas Eve. For me, this day and the next meant nothing but 2 days of that shit job. I stayed away from any celebrations because I was still worried about Michael, with whom I hadn't telephoned for weeks. Again and again, I asked those women having a cell phone available to make a phone call and offered to pay cash, even double the price, 3 cartons of cigarettes, to speak 15 minutes with my son. But it was said constantly that it wasn't possible. Whether this really was true or they just didn't want to help, I was not so sure. Finally, I gave up begging people. I preferred remaining for myself in the cell. I was not sure anymore if I really could give up the job in the new year. On one hand, I desperately needed the money, otherwise I could not stand it anymore. After those 2 free days, the chaos of the Christmas party still remained in the company. I was told to help putting everything back in place. I didn't lift a finger. Did I celebrate, or the others? Since it wasn't possible to start working, I went outside to smoke. The slave-driving woman, a guard named Vera, tore violently at my arm with the command I had already smoked. I should return into the building. Earlier on, I had even observed that she beat women. I had asked one of them why she took this shit like this and not report it to the directorate. In any case, I didn't take it and planned to make a charge against her of physical injury by Wesley. I wanted him to take it to the police. No one should touch me here without punishment, and certainly not this primitive security bitch. Totally unexpected, Amadeus appeared between the holidays and asked, quite hypocritical, "How is that? You're still here?" Next, he wanted to know if Julia had already received the money from Wesley, whereupon I let him know that Julia equally often as I tried it to reach him, Amadeus, but unsuccessful. He came with spurious excuses, like many clients. He always had his cell phone switched off, of course. He talked too much for my taste, and I, sitting still in the cell, could give a damn about it. Harsh, I just commented that I was ready to pay all the money I still had, just for 12 days of freedom during Christmas and New Year's, and the ability to make phone calls with my son. "Your son is a different world, and I don't care." I only heard of him. A serious error of Amadeus. This not even Wesley would have dared to remark. "Forget it," was my response. He knew what I meant, but still made a last attempt to get hold of my 3 mil, to urge me then angrily to tear the already signed authority of attorney, complaining about the 7 reais he had invested for the telegram to Julia. Would it not all been so sad, I would probably have laughed him in his face. 8th of January 2009. On New Year's Eve, midnight, Pagode de Salta, the DVD on TV. Better, the year could not have started for me under these circumstances. Otherwise, I ignored all around me and continued writing my book. Emotionally, it cost me so much strength, for the second time, to live through everything, and I shed so many tears doing this again. My decision to give up work at Embramed was clear now. My book was more important to me. If necessary, I would quit smoking to get along with my money. Since I now learned that I could not trust a lawyer, I expected nothing more, not semi-aberto, nor anything else, and it didn't interest me anymore. The 12 days of freedom were lost anyhow. What should I go for now? To meet the same insane women in Butantan, like here, and share one cell again with such loonies like here, and the whole psychological terror once again? I was much better off here alone. My letter to Wesley, in this regard, was already written. I only had to send it yet. In addition, I pointed out his mistakes I had found reading all copies of the process he had left for me, as a proof that he worked very well for me. Sorry, but no good enough, as I found out. First, he had given my official residence address with Julia, whom I had met here in prison, without mentioning that the charges against Julia were dropped. Super, Wesley. Which judge would let me stay with another ex-prisoner? Second error, a simple indication that I had a minor son. This interested no one, and certainly no judge, for nearly all the prisoners have more than one minor child. So I wrote Wesley for the upteenth time that he should put it in another way and bring the facts. We had no family, and that my son was in an orphanage, was brought against my will from Spain to Germany, that he had run away now and no one knew where he was staying. To find out, it was urgent that I was released to be able to call him. This Wesley should immediately notify the judge about. I wrote to him. I was seriously worried about Michael. No mail, no call from him, even though he had 2 numbers he could reach me. By writing my book, I obtained distraction not to go crazy with worry. Since weeks now, I had run behind the plumber of the house to repair the pipes in the bathroom. Everything was still under water, and I had not a wet room but a wet cell. Mistakenly, he finally worked the toilet of the police, which was next to my cell. After the gouging out the walls, new pipes were laid. He assured me, although I was quite a different opinion, that my cell would be dry, if only the police toilet was dehydrated. It finally came out that the reason for the general flooding was in my cell. Without further ado, I was again moved into the opposite cell, exactly where I started with Donna Edith and May. Fortunately, it should be only for a few days, because with these sluts still staying alone in this double cell, because no one wanted to share the cell with them, this was the last thing I needed now. 21st of January, 2009. Slowly, I began to think seriously that I would be the last one here, switching off the light. A week before, Bali was released, and on this day it was Lena, so I was pretty much alone with many new prisoners. I watched on TV the takeover of power by the new American president. It was an event which would be part of world history and remain an unforgettable day. Although I was never in the US, it touched me deeply. Since a long time I asked myself where Tony was, and if he also participated or watched this event. The son of an African and a white American was now the most powerful man in the world. 13th of February 2009. Since 1.5 weeks it was official. The judge had signed the decision for Sammy Alberto. But neither was I happy about it, nor did I know when I would be going. The prison of Butantau was overcrowded, and therefore Wesley said that it could take about 5 weeks. If Wesley spoke of 5 weeks, I could easily count on 10. Here, I got no chance to speak with Michael. I told myself, at least on a daily basis, that it will not take long until I could officially call him. Nevertheless, I had the feeling to lose my mind and go insane. My panic of cockroaches increased so much that I began to suffer hallucinations and saw these beasts wherever I looked, even if they weren't here. Rarely did I have them in the cell, because I never forgot again to seal the door slot. However, the season was on when the big cockroaches flew around the area and promptly came flying through the opening in the door. Although I laughed about it the next day, but that night I got a nervous breakdown. The guards were not taking me serious at all, even though I cried and begged for help. The door was not opened. The cockroach in the cell circled low over my head. Just this horror I had always feared, although for me there was nothing better than to be alone, but cockroaches I just could not handle, nor kill them. Again, I grabbed the broom and hunted the beast, which finally landed on the floor right in front of the cell door. So I pushed the old towels away from the door, and behold, the thing crawled out through the door slot. Since then, I sealed also the opening in the door with plastic film, because insect spray, which would have helped me surely, was prohibited. Nevertheless, I found another one in the bathroom and was hysterics. The bath was flooded completely with water because of this cockroach until the door was opened and another prisoner disposed the creature. If I sat alone in the evening, I saw them everywhere and knew if I was not out of here soon, I would end up in the loony bin. 1 week ago, a new prisoner came into the opposite cell, a Spanish woman, her body covered with huge bruises, beaten and kicked by Dinaki. She suffered a miscarriage after 3 months of pregnancy. I immediately thought back on Fabio Lucetti. When I heard her story, I was horrified. The woman reminded me, as well as externally but also by her nature, much of Candy, so I liked her right away. Eventually, I could speak Spanish again with someone. According to her testimony in detail, I wrote a report in Portuguese of what these brutal thugs had done to her. I accompanied her to ITTC. There, I insisted that they forwarded the report to human rights organizations. Told Daniana to show her body. The people of ITTC were shocked and immediately agreed to do so. I also helped Daniana to contact the Spanish consulate. It was not long until someone came from there and made sure that she was admitted to a hospital where it was discovered that she had several broken ribs and still strong abdominal bleeding. I hoped that at least she would, with the assistance of the Spanish consulate, be transferred to Spain.